A pagan hero and a Christian saint. Once upon a time there lived a mythical king and his queen, King Conn of Ireland and Queen Eda of Brittany, and their marriage was a union so perfect that it equaled that of heaven and earth, which is the macrocosmic archetype of all weddings. The historians declare that the perfection of their character and conduct was reflected in the blessings of their reign. The earth produced exuberant crops, and the trees ninefold fruit. Rivers, lakes, and the sea teemed with choice fish. The herds and flocks were unusually prolific. Such descriptions of natural abundance are not unusual in the legends of beneficent reigns. For when two faultless rulers conform to the divine law of the universe and guide their people by their own model conduct, they bring into operation the quickening power of perfection. The consummate king and queen make manifest together what the Chinese term Tao, the virtue of the universal order. They make Tao manifest as day, the universal of their own proper nature, and this virtue is self-effulgent. Its influence penetrates like magic into the vital centers of everything around them, so that even the spirit of the land appears to be affected. Harmony and beatitude go out from it. The fields produce, the herds multiply, and the cities thrive as in a golden age. Now this King Conn and Queen Eda had a son, and since the Druids foretold at his birth that he should inherit the good qualities of both his parents, he was given both their names and called Conn-eda. And indeed he was an extraordinary child. He grew up to be the idol of the king and queen and the pride of his people. He was greatly honored and loved. But sad to relate, during the years of his youth, the high promise of Conn-eda's career was abruptly darkened, for his mother died, and his father, on the advice of the Druids, took another wife. She was the daughter of the king's arch-druid, had children of her own, foresaw that Conn-eda would succeed to the throne, and out of jealousy and hatred began to seek his ruin. She desired his death, or at the very least his exile from the land, and to bring her evil purpose to pass, began to circulate calumnious reports, but the youth was above suspicion, and so presently she resorted to supernatural devices and betook herself to a celebrated witch. The wicked queen was obliged to fulfill a number of odd and very costly requirements, but in the end was supplied with a miraculous chessboard, so charmed that its owner should always win the first game. She was to challenge the unsuspecting prince with the suggestion that the winner of a game might impose whatever gesh or condition he liked, and when she then had won, was to pledge him under penalty of exile to procure within a year certain mythical trophies, 3 golden apples from the fairy realm, as well as the black steed, and the hound of supernatural powers belonging to the fairy king. So precious and well guarded were these that should the prince attempt to procure them, he would undoubtedly meet his death. The game was arranged. The prince had no suspicion of evil, and the queen won, but she was so keen to have him completely in her power that she challenged him to a second try, and this time, to her astonishment and mortification, lost. She was unwilling to play again. She announced her gesh, and when Conn-eda heard it, he realized that he had been betrayed. But the second gesh was his to name. He decided to keep the queen immobile while he was gone, so he required that she should sit upon the pinnacle of the castle tower and there remain exposed to sun and storm, and subsisting on the most meager fare until his return, or until the expiration of the stipulated year and a day. Conn-eda now was in desperate need of advice. He resorted to a puissant druid, but when the sage consulted the particular divinity he worshipped, it was revealed that neither the druid nor his god had any power to help. There existed, however, so the druid suggested, a certain bird of the human head, a peculiar creature fabled for its knowledge of the past, present, and future, which lived concealed in a dangerous wilderness, and even if found would be difficult to cajole. It was the druid's belief that if induced to speak, that bird might be of valuable assistance. "Take yonder little shaggy horse," he said, "and mount him immediately, for in 3 days the bird will make himself visible, and the little shaggy steed will conduct you to his abode. but lest the bird should refuse to reply to your queries, take this precious stone and present it to him, and then little danger and doubt exist, but that he will give you a ready answer." Conn-eda mounted the unimpressive steed and let the reins fall loose on its neck so that the animal might take whatever road it chose. It was a magical horse possessed of the gift of speech, and it carried its rider safely through a series of adventures. In due time the prince came to the hiding place of the strange bird, presented the stone, and posed his question concerning the quest, whereupon the creature, in response, flew to an inaccessible rock at some distance, and from that perch commanded in a loud, croaking human voice, "Conn-eda, son of the king of Cruachan, remove the stone just under your right foot and take the ball of iron and cup you will find under it. Then mount your horse, cast the ball before you, and having so done, your horse will tell you all the things you will need to know." Removing the stone, Conn-eda took the iron ball and the cup, mounted the horse, and cast the ball before him. It rolled on ahead at a regular rate, and the shaggy horse began to follow its lead. They arrived in this fashion at the shore of Loch Earn, but the ball did not stop. It rolled into the water and disappeared. At this juncture the horse gave its first piece of advice. "Alight now," it said, "and put your hand into my ear. Take from thence the small bottle of all-heal and the little basket that you will find there, and remount with speed, for just now your great dangers and difficulties begin." They went into the water, following the way taken by the iron ball, and the lake lay only as an atmosphere above their heads. The ball was rediscovered, rolling quietly along. It came to a broad river, traversed by a ford, but defended by 3 terrible serpents, with yawning, frightful, hissing mouths and formidable fangs. "Now," said the shaggy horse, "open the basket and cast from it a piece of the meat into the mouth of each serpent. When you have done this, secure yourself in your saddle so that we may make all due arrangements to pass. If you cast the pieces of meat into the mouth of each serpent unerringly, we shall pass them safely, otherwise we are lost." Conn-eda flung the pieces with unerring aim. "Bear benison and victory," said the little horse, "for you are a youth who will win and prosper." Then it gave a leap, and with a single mighty bound cleared both the river and the ford. "Are you still mounted, Prince Conn-eda?" "It has taken only half my strength to remain so," Conn-eda replied. They proceeded, following the ball, until they came in view of a great mountain flaming with fire. "Hold yourself in readiness," warned the horse, "for another dangerous leap." And he sprang from the earth and flew like an arrow over the burning mountain. "Are you still alive, Conn-eda, son of the king?" "I am just alive and no more, for I am greatly scorched," the prince replied. "If you are still alive at all," the little horse said, "I feel assured that you are a young man destined to meet supernatural success in benisons. Our greatest dangers are over, and there is hope that we shall overcome the next and last." Conn-eda, on the advice of the druid's steed, applied the elixir all-heal to his burns and was made as whole and fresh as ever. Then they set out once again along the track of the iron ball, and at last arrived at the fortress of the fairies, a vast city surrounded by high walls, and defended not by arms but by 2 towers of flame. "Alight on this plain," the horse said, "and take a small knife from my other ear, and with this knife you shall kill me and flay me. When you have done this, envelop yourself in my hide, and you can pass the gate unscathed and unmolested. When you get inside, you can come out at pleasure, because when once you enter there's no danger, and you can pass and repass whenever you wish. And let me tell you that all I have to ask of you in return is that once inside the gate, you will immediately come back and drive away the birds of prey that may be fluttering round to feed on my carcass, and more, that you will pour any drop of that powerful all-heal, if such still remains in the bottle, upon my flesh to preserve it from corruption." The prince was deeply shocked. "Well, my noblest steed," he said, "because you have been so faithful to me hitherto, and because you still would have rendered me further service, I consider such a proposal insulting to my feelings as a man, and totally at variance with the spirit which can feel the value of gratitude. Not to speak of my feelings as a prince, but as a prince I am able to say, come what may, come death itself in its most hideous forms and terrors, I will never sacrifice friendship to personal interest. Hence I swear by my arms of valor, prepared to meet the worst, even death itself, sooner than violate the principles of humanity, honor, and friendship." The animal insisted in its demand. "Never, never," replied the gentle prince. "Well then, son of the great western monarch," said the horse in a tone of sorrow, "if you refuse to follow my advice on this occasion, I tell you that both you and I shall perish and shall never meet again. But if you act as I have instructed you, matters will assume a happier and more pleasing aspect than you can imagine. I have not misled you heretofore, and if I have not, what need have you to doubt the most important portion of my counsel? Do exactly as I've directed you, else you will cause a worse fate than death to befall me. And moreover, I can tell you that if you persist in your resolution, I have done with you forever." The prince in the end reluctantly took the knife out of the horse's ear, and with trembling hand experimentally pointed the weapon at its throat, whereupon, as if impelled by some magic power, the blade struck deeply, suddenly, of itself into the neck, and the work of death was done. The distracted youth cast himself beside the carcass on the ground and cried aloud until his consciousness was gone. When he recovered, he assured himself that the little steed was dead, and then, though with misgivings and abundant tears, essayed the task of flaying. This done, he enveloped himself in the hide, and in a half-demented state passed through the gate. He was neither molested nor opposed, but the splendor of the fairy city had no charm for him. He was moving in a daze, absorbed entirely in his grief. When the last request of the horse forced itself upon his mind, he returned to the carcass, put the birds of prey to flight, and with the precious ointment embalmed the now mangled remains. To his surprise, the inanimate flesh commenced to undergo some strange change, and in a few minutes, to his unspeakable joy, it assumed the form of the handsomest and noblest young man imaginable, and came to life. The two embraced in an ecstasy of delight. "Most noble and puissant prince," the new youth declared, "you are the best sight I ever saw with my eyes, and I am the most fortunate being in existence for having met you. Behold in my person, changed to the natural shape, your little shaggy horse. I am the brother of the king of the fairy city, and it was the wicked druid who kept me so long in bondage, but he was to give me up when you came to consult him, because the condition, the gesh of my bondage, was then broken. Nevertheless, I could not recover my pristine shape and appearance unless you acted as you have kindly done. It was my own sister who urged the queen, your stepmother, to send you in quest of the apples, the steed, and the powerful puppy-hound, which my brother has now in his keeping. My sister, rest assured, had no thought of doing you the least injury, but much good, as you will find hereafter, because if she were maliciously inclined toward you, she could have accomplished her end without any trouble. In short, she only wanted to free you from all future danger and disaster, and recover me from my relentless enemies through your aid. Come with me, my friend and deliverer, and the steed and the puppy-hound of extraordinary powers and the golden apples shall be yours, and a cordial welcome shall greet you in my brother's abode." The happy ending is quickly told. Conn-eda obtained the 3 trophies, and was urged to spend the remainder of his period of trial in the fairy realm as the guest of the king. When the time for his departure came, he was besought to return at least once every year. On the journey home, no difficulties presented themselves, and in due time he came in sight of the wicked queen. She was still perching on her uncomfortable pinnacle, but full of hope, for the last day of the ordeal had dawned. The prince surely would fail to arrive, and therewith would forfeit all of his rights to the kingdom. But lo, behold, she thought she spied him. He was returning, mounted on a black charger and leading a hound by a silver chain. The queen cast herself from the tower in a fit of despair and was dashed to bits. And when the king was apprised of her base conduct, he ordered that her remains should be burned. The prince planted his 3 golden apples in the garden. Instantly a magnificent tree sprang up, bearing golden fruit, which caused all the realm to produce exuberant crops. If the years of Conn-eda's father had been great, his own were greater, and the long reign is famous to this day for its abundance. The kingdom that Conn-eda governed still bears his name. It is the western Irish province of Connacht.